Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to show you something that a lot of you have been asking about, and that's how to paint eyes. So everybody knows how difficult it can be to paint eyes, but today I'm going to show you a relatively easy to follow way to get in there and get it done. So before we get started, there are a couple of things that you may need in order to make things a little easier on yourself. And the first one is magnifying glasses. Now, so I got these off of Amazon, and there is an affiliate link below, but I like these right here because they do have the switch out lenses that allow you to get relatively close up on something in order to paint it. Oh, I can see your soul. And these also have like a little light on the side. Mine's not working at the moment, but here's another couple things that you may need. So the other thing that you may need are a couple of fine detail brushes. Now I also have a link below for these right here. These are from Tamiya. These brushes have very fine detail points on them that allow you to get in there and paint that finest of detail like an eye. So you really don't need a long bristled brush. You just need something to put a little bit of paint on there, get in there and get out. But you don't need a long liner or anything like that. But hey, if you have your favorite brush you like to use, then use it. And the only other thing that you need is a good prayer to the statue eyeball god. It works! I behold the lady, please don't let me screw this up. All right, and now that you have those things, without further ado, let's get into the video. So the couple of head sculpts that we're going to work with today is Hawkeye right here from Wicked Art. I've done some of the skin tones and some of the shading on here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to work the eyes on this one. And then we got the big Jugster. We got Juggernaut here. Same thing. I've done the skin tone on this one and I've done some of the shading, but we're going to use these because they do have a little bit bigger area for us to focus in on. And this will allow me to show you a little bit better up close how to do the eyes. This one's going to be kind of like a little bit of a partial eye. You're not going to get the full pupil in it and everything, and this one here is going to be basically like the full pupil. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started on them. So a couple of the colors that I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using an off-white here for the eye itself, and then I'm going to be using this this Panzer Aces right here. This is basically a German black, but it's basically a black-brown combination. So if you have something along that line, that would work just fine. I don't want something that's so black it's going to be very, very stark in color, and it's going to kind of make the eyeball stand out in a bad way. So a good brown-black mixture would be just fine. And then you're also going to need somewhat of a small red wash. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thin this black and brown down, just that way it doesn't blob up on the tip of my brush here. Don't want it super thick, you don't want it super thin, you want it just right. That way what we're going to do is we're going to go into the top of the eye and actually put in some eyelashes. And the way to do that is to go inside the eye, and you're actually going to go up at the top, and you're just going to put that brown line on top like that. And you're going to do that on both sides, but you want to make sure that you get up under the eyelid. Can you see how I did that here? So let's go into the other eye. Let's try this on this side. And for me, it's easier to turn the head upside down rather than do it right side up, because I can actually see in the bottom right there. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take that red wash that you got, you're going to mix in a little bit of that off-white with it, and you're going to come up with basically a rose colored type of pigment here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing like you did up here at the top. The only difference is you're going to do it on the bottom. And what this is going to do is this is going to kind of simulate a little bit of the blood that is in the bottom of the eyelid. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to mix up your off-white. You're going to thin it down a little bit to where you can get it on the brush. That way it is not too thick. And then you're going to go and you're going to apply it on the inside of the eyeball. Get it up as close to the eyelash as possible and as close to the bottom of the eyelid as possible without going off in those directions. And it is okay if you do. Now, I probably got mine a little too thin. Let me show you a trick here. If you get it a little too thin, you just take a dry brush and you just whip it back over like that. So when you do that, it picks that old wet paint back up and you just thicken up your paints and move forward. Okay, so once you apply a couple of coats, then you should have something like this. You're gonna have the top of the eyelash on the top, you're gonna have the little blood line in the bottom of the eyelid, and you got your white on here. Now this particular sculpt here has sculpted eyeballs. You probably can't see them here, but you can see them if you have the model in front of you. And so the eyes are actually looking off to the right because in the pose he is actually shooting his bow. And so I'm going to show you an easier way to actually get that pupil and iris in there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take that red wash and I'm going to take a little bit bigger of a brush and I'm going to dab a little bit into the white part right here and right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to give it a little bit of a bloodshot effect into the eye. We're going to wait for that to dry and then we're going to hit the pupil. So while I was waiting on that, I went ahead and I did the hair and some of the facial features and everything, the shading and all that, just so you can get a good representation of what it looks like before the eyes. And I think that just makes it that much easier on you, and that way you can actually tell the difference. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually go in and put the pupil in. So for this one here, I'm actually going to use one of these fine tip markers. It's a Gundam marker. Found these at Hobby Lobby, or you can use a Pentec marker, but these are good for marking where the pupils are actually going to be in the eye. It's a little bit easier on you rather than using a paintbrush. But if you're skilled enough and you have enough confidence and you want to use the brush to put that in there for the eye, that marking, then knock yourself out with it. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Okay, so he is looking a little bit this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to kind of draw. I'm going to kind of mark where I want the eye at. And that way you can get a good idea before you go in and you brush it. That makes it that much easier. You got a little bit of a more steady hand there. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with the brush and I'm going to paint that in there into the eye there. All right, so now I got some black thinned out and I'm going to go in and paint this in there. Alright, so it's at this point where I am sealing the model because I'm going to have to handle it with my hands. And I've already put stains on there I've had to fix, and I definitely don't want to do any more of that. So I sealed the model. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the pupils here. And I like to start off with like a blue-gray, kind of like this right here, for the inside of the pupil. And Jeremy Renner has green eyes, so we're going to start out with that, and then we're going to go use in some different greens and put in some striations into the eyes and everything, make it look a little bit more realistic. All right, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put in that blue-gray into the black part right here of the eye. All right, so next what I'll do is I'll take a few colors of green, shades of green here like I've got on my palette, and I'll just go start working pretty much like light to dark and I'll go around the eye and just add some striations to it. Give it a little bit of depth to it and make it a little bit more of a green eye. So I'll start out by kind of putting this into the center. Again, if you don't want to go this complex, you don't have to. You can skip this step, but if you want to make your eyes more realistic, this is something you can definitely easy to follow here. So now that I got that green in there, I'm actually going to take a little bit of this darker green. I'm just going to kind of dab it in place right on the outside here. Make a little bit of lines if you can. All right. And then finally with this last color green right here, I'll do the same thing. I'm just going in and putting just a little bit of some striations in there. And the final touch, I'm going to use the same marker right here, and I'm actually going to put in the iris. And the last thing I'll do is I'll take this spotter brush here. Doesn't have to have a sharp tip on it at all. We're just going to do some dabbing. And then right where I put that, that's where I'm going to make my mark. And there you go. And so the last thing that we'll do is we'll add this gloss varnish to the eye. What I like to do is at first I like to kind of just dab it into there. That way it kind of builds up into the eyeball a little bit. And when you add this to it, it just pops. It just makes it look so much neater. And this is the final result. So on Juggernaut, I did something similar that I did with the Hawkeye head. I went ahead and I added the hair, I did the skin tones and the teeth and everything like that, so you could actually see what it looks like when everything is all painted up. So why I wanted to use the Juggernaut here was because the eyes are really big. You can see the whites in the eyes, and I really want to focus in on the eye, the pupil and iris and stuff, and showing you how to paint those. So I went ahead and I went and prepped the white in the eye. I did the bloodshot and everything like I did in Hawkeye. So on this one here, we're really going to focus in on the pupil and the iris and the inner parts of the eye on how to paint those. And because this head sculpt is so big, you'll be able to see a little bit better of how I do it. So this one doesn't have any sculpted eyeball or anything like that. So I'm going to use this Gundam marker again to kind of mark where my eye is going to be in the center. And he's going to be looking straight ahead. So I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of a line down there like so. And that way you can actually get an idea of where I'm going to put the eyeball. Now, if you want to go one step further, you can actually just go ahead and draw the eyeball in. And there you go. And it doesn't have to be perfect because, again, you're going to paint it. And you just want a good sense of placement where you're going to put this thing at. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to blacken it out. And then we're going to start on the pupil and the inner iris and everything like that on it. Okay, so because the eyeball is so big, I can actually use a little bit bigger brush. If you want to still use the smaller detail brush, then you can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just paint where I want this. Alright, so we have the outline basically of what the eye is going to look like. The pupil is pretty much just blocked in, and now we're going to choose the color that we want, and we're going to go back in and paint the inner part of that. Okay, so for Juggernaut, we're going to assume that his eye is brown, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay the base down on the brown in the black area that I put. And there you have it. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take and put in the black part in the iris. And here's the part where you get different shades of brown, like lighter browns. You can even do some yellows or some oranges. And this is where you start to go into the pupil and put in some striations with your fine detail brush. And it just gives it a little bit more of a realistic appearance to it. And that's just an example. You can get as carried away as you want, and you can add all kinds of different types of colors in there, but you kind of get the picture. And then if you need to, you can go back in and re-put the black in there. If you're one of those who wants to add the white to the part of the eye for reflection or whatever, then you can do that as well. But this is pretty much how you do an eye. So after playing around with the colors a little bit in the eye, this is the end result right here on Juggernaut. And on Hawkeye, little side eye action right there. But I hope this helps you out in painting eyes. All right, everybody, I hope that helped you out. I hope you took something from that in order to better paint eyeballs. And at this point in the video where I have to give a special shout out to all of my Patreon members. If you are looking to become a member of my Patreon, there is a link below in the description. We do have a private Discord, and we actually have a couple of new members this week. So let's see who we have here. Trevor 3D Prints and Michael Webb. Thank you guys so much for becoming the newest members of my Patreon. And again, if you'd like to support the channel by becoming a Patreon member, that link is below in the description. And if the Patreon is not for you, just continue to support the channel by watching the next video. And the next. And the next. And if you're new to the channel and this is your first video to watch, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any future videos. And with that being said, everyone, stay safe out there. Get out and create something. Print, prep, paint, repeat. And until the next video, everyone, we'll see you. Yeah, if you'd only gone for the head, it would have saved us a lot of trouble.